Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing a much requested follow-up video, and that is going to be the follow-up to my FIDM video. And I just realized I did this video about a year ago and I'm just now filming the sequel to it. So I'm sorry that it took so long, but whenever people would ask me questions I would answer them, so hopefully you're not too mad at me. So in my first video, I basically covered the whole admissions process and the general information about the program that I was in at FIDM, which is Beauty Industry Merchandising and Marketing. But this video is going to be more generalized. It's going to be based off of dorming, student life, workload, bachelor's degree or no bachelor's degree, and study tours, and then the kind of after FIDM life, I guess, as far as job hunting goes. So hopefully those topics will be helpful to you and this video can help you out. If you have any questions, you can always comment on this video and I'll answer them, or you can email me with a longer question at olivia@oliviafrescura.com because I always answer them. So the first topic I'm going to be covering is whether to dorm with student housing, to commute, or to live in an apartment, and kind of what's the best option for you money-wise and all that good stuff. So for the first year of FIDM, I commuted. I live in a small town that's outside of Los Angeles County, so I could easily take the train to downtown LA to commute. And of course that's not an option for everyone because a lot of people are out-of-state students. So for that, you either can choose housing or apartments. In the second year of FIDM, I lived in an apartment, but I was friends with people who did housing. Commuting to FIDM, I think, is a very smart idea if you have that ability, but it can get annoying because it's hard to make friends and you are only there for when you have classes. You just go back afterwards. But I mean, it's up to you really. As far as student housing goes, this topic I could talk about for a while because everybody wants to know about it and there's a lot to cover. So FIDM student housing is based on the quarter system just like the classes are, and in order to do student housing it's going to be $3,000. As when I'm making this video, the price changes every year I believe, but it's $3,000 for a shared bedroom and then $300 for the placement fee, and then for a private room it costs $6,000 plus $300 placement fee. So that's a lot of money. So you're probably thinking, what does that exactly include? So you're going to come with a fully furnished apartment. You don't need to buy a bed. You probably don't even need to buy an alarm clock. Just kidding, you probably will need to buy an alarm clock. But you don't need to buy cable, you don't need to buy your utilities, and you don't need to buy internet because that is all provided to you. However, parking is not included. So if you have a car, you'll still have to pay for parking. But in a lot of apartment buildings in LA, you do have to pay for parking. I wouldn't know personally because I don't drive. So there are a few properties where FIDM does their student housing. The first one is the Met, which is directly across the street from FIDM. So that's where a lot of FIDM people live. The second is the Medici, which is about 0.7 miles away from the school. It's about a 15-minute walk, and I lived there whenever I got my own apartment with some roommates the second year of FIDM, but I did not go through student housing. The third is Park La Brea, which is actually pretty far away. You'd have to drive or take a bus to get to FIDM, so I would not recommend that necessarily, even though it's a nice place to live. It's pretty much directly across the street from the Grove, which is pretty much a lot closer to Beverly Hills, not downtown LA. The main ones I'm going to be focusing on are the Met and the Medici because I know the most about them and I've been in both of them in apartments and all that. So, okay. As far as recommendations go, I don't recommend one or the other more. It's just depending, oh, do you want to walk 15 minutes? Or do you want to be right there? I like the feel of the Medici more because it kind of has that whole, I want to say like Roman feel. It looks like a luxury resort, and the Met is very modern. I wasn't in love with the Met also because you had to pay for laundry last time I checked, and you didn't have a washer or dryer inside your unit, but in the Medici you have a washer and dryer inside of your unit. So that's pretty good. But I also didn't really like the Met because Marie Osmond's son killed himself there. So yeah. And another interesting fact is that you're not guaranteed to live in the same apartment for the entire duration that you're in housing because they do it quarterly. So you could have to move at the end of the quarter. It just depends on FIDM. You don't really know if you're gonna move or not. I mean, I had a friend who was living in housing and she probably moved twice. So that puts a real damper in it, and you don't even stay in the same building necessarily. You could go from the Medici to the Met, you don't really know. And that's what's kind of annoying about student housing, because what if you're trying to go visit your family over the 2-week break and you don't have time to move? A good thing about student housing though is that you know what you're gonna pay every month. With regular apartments, you don't really know how much, you know, your gas is gonna cost, your water is gonna cost every month. So you kind of have that stressful situation of splitting the bill with your roommates and, you know, still dealing with your classes at the same time. And that was something that was an issue for me because I was put in charge of all utilities for my apartment whenever I was living with roommates. Next, I'm going to talk about getting a regular apartment, which is a scary task, especially if you are out of state. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a personal story, and it's a really embarrassing story about how I got my apartment in FIDM. So I really wanted to move out, but I didn't know people because it's really hard to make friends at FIDM. So we did the whole online thing. So I met this girl on Twitter who was, you know, tweeting me occasionally, subscribed to my YouTube. She even commented on my channel a couple times, you know, like, hey, I go to FIDM in San Francisco, but we have to move to LA. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then she didn't really ask me to be her roommate. I kind of brought that up because I was like, you know, I wanted to move out and I didn't really care who I moved out with because I was so desperate, because I was like, oh my god, I hate my family. I'm like 19 years old. So she needed one more roommate, so I was like, okay, I'll be your roommate. So my dad surprisingly said yes, and then we started to get the ball rolling on choosing where to live. So I did a lot of research on where to live. The Medici was still at the top of my list, however. And you know, whenever I met her and stuff, it was totally fine and all of that. And I even wanted to be in the same room as her because I was like, she's the only person I know, so I want to be in the same room as her. But she didn't want to be in the same room as me, so that didn't happen. After viewing a bunch of apartments that were around FIDM, I still wanted to live in the Medici, but they were hesitant, and my other roommates were hesitant to live in the Medici as well because of the price. And of course every apartment's going to be different, so I can't really tell you how much it was. I think it was $2,300 a month. But the reason why I liked the Medici was because of the built-in laundry in each unit. And I believe you got 2 parking spaces for free with that. You didn't have to pay for parking, which you do at the Met and other places too. So it took some convincing, but eventually I convinced them to live in the Medici. So then came the not so fun part. We had to deal with signing the lease, the security deposit, and all of that. And it's honestly really hard when people live in a different area and you're trying to balance that and like split money. It's just, I don't know, everything gets hard when money is involved. So first, make sure you're all on the lease, because you don't want to be held responsible for something if it goes wrong. You know, if you burn a hole in your carpet and you are charged $200 to replace it, then that's going to be on whoever is on the lease. And if everyone's on the lease, then everyone will split it, or it'll just be taken out of your security deposit, given that the rest of your apartment was okay. But that's a little bit of a ramble. So it comes to about a few weeks before we're about to move, and I think I had posted a video saying that I wanted to get the IKEA Alex drawers and 2 Helmers from IKEA to store a bunch of my makeup and nail polish in. And my future roommate comments on my video like, I don't know if that's gonna fit in your room, you can't take up more than half of the room, you know, and starting drama over a video, which was really weird to me. And I was just like, excuse me, like, it's not gonna take up half of the room and you're not even my roommate anyway, so why are we getting into this kind of a thing? So that was my first red flag, and we hadn't even moved in yet, but it's like a little too late. So flash forward to the first week of July, which was when we moved. I had yet to meet my roommates until we were moving in. So I met my first roommate, who was my actual roommate in the same room, and she was really nice. She was a little bit out there, which is kind of funny saying that now that I've known her for a long time, but I was kind of like, whoa, she's a little bit weird whenever I first met her. And we moved in at the same time because she was already in LA and the other 2 were still in San Francisco, Northern California area, you know, driving down to move. We were all moved in and it was all good until a few days later. There was just so much drama. It was ridiculous. I mean, if I turn my light on at 10:30 in the morning, I'm wasting energy. It's daylight. You can't use light during the day, okay? I hated my roommate on and off for the entire time that I lived there, and I couldn't even stand to be there for the whole year. So I signed myself out of the lease in February, which honestly was a lot later than I should have done it because I hated my roommate so much. She gave me depression. I lost 10 pounds when I lived there. I was really depressed. I went to therapy, and I just felt hated in the own environment that I was in. But because my family lives here, I was lucky enough to go home every weekend or something, even though my sisters didn't really appreciate that. They were like, you live in an apartment, get out of here, basically. But I was so miserable whenever I lived there. A lot of jealousy issues. And the first red flag to me should have been that she watches my YouTube videos. Well, at least at the time she did. If she watches my YouTube videos now, then that's creepy. But she had a lot of jealousy issues. Like if a company would send me a package, she would be like, you should tell them to send me that. And I was like, are you joking? Like, what? I don't want to seem like I'm bashing her in this. I just want to show you from my experience how it is like moving in people that you don't know. So you just need to be wary about that and make the right decision for you. So next I'm going to talk about student life. And honestly at FIDM there's no student life. There are clubs and stupid stuff like that. There's no sports. We don't have dances. It's not like different. It's not like a university. It's really not. It's a very alone school. You're very independent and by yourself all the time. You know, if you fit the whole FIDM mold, you can make friends pretty easily. So if you want to put on makeup every day and look really fashionable, what are they called? Jeffrey Campbellitas, and carry a Louis Vuitton bag, then you'll probably make some friends. But if you have the occasional day where you're, you know, in sweatpants not wearing makeup, then don't expect for people to talk to you. That's where FIDM gets a little weird, honestly. Next, let's talk about workload. And I think to everyone this is a different thing. They would say for every hour of class, expect 5 hours of homework. And I just don't think that it was like that. Because every class I think was about 2.5 or 3 hours. So that means that we would have 15 hours of homework per week per class. And that is really not true. Maybe for some classes that have some extensive projects, but not really. I think the workload depends on, you know, how you handle work in the past. You know, if you didn't really do well in high school, then you're probably going to think FIDM is a lot of work. But one thing I will mention is that FIDM is about 99% group projects. You're not really going to have to work on your own a lot, so get ready for that. If you hate people like I do, you might have a hard time. But if you're a really hard worker like I am, then you will get good grades on your projects, even if you don't meet up with your group. I personally never met up with a group really to work on the project just because I didn't want to, and because I was commuting at the time or whatever. And I did fine on all of my projects that were group projects. You know, it's all great. You just have to know how to handle working with other people, even if you hate it, because I really hated it. I mean, I've had like horror stories of working with other people in projects. I've had somebody plagiarize. I've had somebody do it completely wrong the day before and I had to redo the whole thing with another teammate. It was, you know, less than ideal. So I mean, I think staying on top of it with group projects is important. The next topic is a topic that's discussed a lot. Whenever I was in FIDM, a lot of students would ask guest speakers, etc., what they think about bachelor's degrees and like third-year programs at FIDM, or just in general. So at FIDM they do have a bachelor's degree program, and I know a lot of people that have taken it. But personally, I think if I want to get a bachelor's degree, which I do, I would not get it at FIDM. The reason for this is I personally think that FIDM is a very specialized school, so I wouldn't want to get, you know, a very like businessy degree at a fashion school because I feel like it's not their specialty. I feel like you should go to a university for that, and I will probably do that, but just get ready for pretty much none of your classes to transfer, so you'll probably be doing it over again, which is why a professional designation degree might be good for you. You might want to take your AA or like your general studies at like a community college, then go to FIDM and then get your bachelor's. But also at FIDM there are third-year programs, and they recently added a beauty industry management degree, I believe. It's a third-year program, so it's not really another degree. It might be just another AA degree, but it's just kind of to get more knowledge and all of that. And at first I was thinking, you know, maybe I'll do it. They just added it after I graduated. At first I was thinking maybe I'll do it, but I just don't think it's worth it because if it's not like a bachelor's degree, I don't see why it's worth it. So something that's a little bit similar is the New York City Beauty Study Tour. And this is something you can do either on the break between your first and second year, or you can do it after you graduate. I decided to do it after I graduate because I thought it would be more helpful as far as job hunting goes, even though that didn't really work out. But that's just what I chose to do. So with FIDM in the beauty major, the first year is general ed and the second year is beauty classes. So I wanted to do it with people I knew in the beauty classes on the beauty trip, if that makes sense. So what happens is you basically go to New York City for a week. I don't remember how much it cost. I want to say around $2,000. And then you go to tour and talk to a bunch of different companies that are beauty companies, of course, and learn all about what they do. And it's kind of like if you're interested in working in New York, you should go on this trip because it can help get the foot in the door for you, which is what I want to do. So I have a whole blog post on the study tour that I did right after I came back from that, and you can see what companies that we toured and all of that. Off the top of my head, we talked to like Shiseido, Tarte, I can't really think right now because it was like a year ago. So I'll just put it below. And I really loved that trip because I became closer to a lot of people that I knew a little bit, and I met new people, and I just really loved that trip, and I think you should go on it if you're a beauty student at FIDM and you want to be in New York, because I definitely want to be in New York. Next, I kind of just wanted to do a little bit of an update, I guess, about my whole job situation, because everybody asks, like, what are you doing now? And the fact of the matter is I'm not doing anything now, and I don't necessarily think that that's FIDM's fault. I think it's a little bit of my fault and the fact that I didn't get a bachelor's degree yet, and I definitely plan on doing that. I'm in the process now of trying to apply and figure out all of that, and it's a pain in the butt, but we're doing it. However, I don't want this to discourage you from going to FIDM or applying to FIDM even, because I know tons of people who work for awesome companies, and I think something awesome to do in my next video, if it's, you know, requested, is to have little clips of my friends and people I went to school with talking about their jobs at awesome companies. And if you're interested in that, please comment below, and hopefully I can try to convince people to put themselves on video for you guys. If not, I'll just have them write something and I'll let you know. I feel like I'm young, so I have a lot of time, but it would be ideal to have a job right now. It just isn't in the cards right now, I guess. So anyways, I hope this video helped you. I know my last one did. I had a lot of people, you know, even come up to me in person and say that they, you know, decided to go to FIDM or even apply to FIDM just because of my video, which I think is kind of crazy to think that somebody would put such a big decision in my hands. But I really appreciate all the comments that you guys leave me, and if you leave me any questions, I definitely answer them. I'm a big stickler about that. Please give it a thumbs up if you like this, and I'll consider making another one if you leave some requests in the comments, and I think that's it. So see you in my next video. Bye!